Okay, so I want you to imagine something for a second. Just picture a version of your life where you are completely, and I mean utterly, unswayed by all the chaos around you.
Hmm.
I'm talking about a state of mind where, other people's opinions, your own nagging fears, that constant low-level hum of anxiety from the news cycle.
Right, the 24/7 noise.
Exactly. None of it can knock you off balance. You're
Yeah.
just moving through the world with this quiet, almost terrifyingly calm precision. You're not reacting to life anymore. Life is just, it's flowing around you.
That's a powerful image. And it sounds, well, it sounds almost superhuman in today's world, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Considering how bombarded we are with stimuli, every single waking hour.
Oh, absolutely.
We're basically vibrating with anxiety half the time, constantly checking notifications, constantly worried about what someone said or,
Yeah.
didn't say.
It feels like a total fantasy. But today, for this deep dive, we are looking into a stack of sources that claim this isn't just a fantasy. It's actually a trainable skill.
And the training manual for this skill, it's not from a modern self-help guru, is it?
Not even close. It's not from some Silicon Valley biohacker either. It's from a 17th century Japanese masterless samurai, a man who spent his life winning life or death duels, only to realize that the real battle, the hardest battle, was happening inside his own head.
We are, of course, talking about the legendary Miyamoto Musashi.
The one and only.
And specifically, we're looking at two really potent pieces of source material today. First, we have his final work, the Dokkodo, which translates to The Way of Walking Alone. It's this fascinating, almost stark list of 21 principles he wrote down just weeks before he died.
A lifetime of wisdom boiled down to 21 lines.
Exactly. And we're pairing that with a more modern text called Forge of the Solitary Warrior, The Path of Hagan and Ishi. And that text really unpacked the deep internal mindset behind those principles.
And this guy, Musashi, he's a legend. They called him the Sword Saint, or Kensei. He fought in over 60 duels. 60 times he walked into a fight knowing one of them wasn't walking out.
And he never lost. Not once.
Never lost. But what I find so gripping about the material we have today, and what we're going to get into, is that it's not really about how to swing a sword. This isn't a fencing manual. It's about how to forge a mind that cannot be broken.
And that's the absolute key distinction. The sources are very clear on this. They describe him as a Ronin, a masterless samurai. He wandered Japan during a time of incredible turmoil. We're talking about the aftermath of the Battle of Sekikara, the shifting of entire eras,
The world in chaos.
the world in chaos, and eventually he tired of the bloodshed. He came to this realization that physical mastery meant nothing if the spirit was restless and chaotic. So he retreated. He went into a cave called Ragando to meditate and write.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at today is really the distillation of a lifetime of combat converted into a philosophy for living.
So the mission for our deep dive today is to really unpack how this centuries-old warrior code can act as a kind of shortcut to modern mental resilience.
Shortcut, yeah, I like that.
We're going to talk about moving from being, as the source says, ruled by impulses, which, let's be honest, is most of us on a Friday night.
Or a Monday morning, for that matter.
True. From that to possessing what the source calls Hagan no Ishi.
The spirit of forged will.
It's about entering what the text calls the silent dojo.
I love that phrase.
Me too, the silent dojo.
Yeah.
It implies that the real training, it doesn't happen in a gym with weights or on a mat. It happens right here, between your ears.
That's where the real work is done.
So let's step into it. Let's start with the absolute foundation of this entire philosophy. Section 1, Solitude versus Loneliness. Because the title of his main work is The Way of Walking Alone. And that sounds, well, to a modern ear, that sounds a little bleak, doesn't it?
It really can. It can sound bleak if we're looking at it through our modern lens, where being alone is so often equated with being unwanted or, being a social failure.
We have a loneliness epidemic.
We do. But the source material makes a very, very critical distinction right out of the gate. It says, to embrace solitude is to willingly step into the silent dojo of the soul. It's a choice.
Okay, so let's really unpack that distinction. What is the functional difference between the loneliness we're all afraid of and the solitude Musashi is talking about here?
Well, loneliness is a feeling of lack. It's a painful thing. It's the pain of isolation. It's you looking around and wishing someone, anyone, was there to validate your existence.
It's a passive state.
It's a passive state, exactly. You feel like a victim of circumstance. Solitude, on the other hand, as Musashi defines it, is a sacred training ground. It's an active choice. It's deliberate.
So you're not hiding from the world.
Not at all. It's not about hiding because you're scared of it. It's about detaching from the constant pull. The constant noise of other people's opinions and expectations so you can finally hear yourself think. The source puts it beautifully. It says that in solitude, no applause, no validation, and no noise can distract you from who you truly are.
Wow. That that hits hard. No applause. I mean, we live in an economy of applause, don't we?
Completely.
Likes, retweets, performance reviews, keeping up with the Joneses. We're constantly looking sideways to see if we're doing it right, if people approve.
Precisely. And that very act of looking sideways is identified in the text as a fundamental weakness in the warrior's mindset. The text actually warns against begging the world to understand you.
Begging the world.
Yeah. Just think about how much energy we burn trying to explain ourselves, trying to get people to see our point of view, trying to be validated.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And Musashi's argument is that when you choose solitude, and this can be mental solitude, even if you're in a crowded room, you learn to trust your own judgment. You stop needing footsteps beside you to know you're on the right path.
It's like that line from the source, when you can stand alone without flinching, you become someone the world cannot easily move or break.
Yes.
Because if I don't need your approval, what leverage do you have over me?
You have no leverage. That's it, right there. If your self-worth is outsourced to the crowd owns you. If it's insourced through deliberate solitude, you own yourself. And that leads us directly to the 21st principle of the Dokkodo, which is the final instruction he left.
The capstone.
The capstone. Do not stray from the path.
That feels like the summation of everything else, you know? But what exactly is the path? Is he talking about a specific religion? A set of moral rules? What is it?
So the path is your own internal compass. But it's an internal compass that's been sharpened by discipline. The expert analysis in our sources suggests that straying from the path happens when we let external distractions,
the
noise or the desire for approval, pull us off course. To walk alone means you are the architect. You are the navigator. The path is that place where, as the text so beautifully puts it, vision is born and character is forged.
I see. So if you're constantly surrounded by noise, you can never actually hear that inner command.
You can't. You're just echoing the noise around you.
It's interesting because do not stray from the path has this almost religious commandment-like feel to it. But in this context, it seems intensely practical. It's about integrity.
It is.
If I say I'm going to do something, get up early and go for a run, and then I let my desire for comfort stop me, I've strayed.
You've strayed.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for Musashi, the path wasn't just be a good person. His path was the path of strategy, of mastery, of the sword. But the principle applies to anyone's path. If your path is to be an artist or a good parent or an entrepreneur, you will face a million distractions.
A million.
You'll face critics. You will face people telling you you're crazy or that it's impossible. Walking alone means holding your course despite that constant negative feedback loop.
So, okay, step one is getting comfortable in that silence. Stop looking for the crowd to cheer you on. But let's be real, once you're on that path, life is still, life is still going to throw bricks at your head.
It always does.
You're still going to deal with loss, failure, bad luck, things just not going your way. And this brings us right to the second major theme we found in the sources. The art of detachment and acceptance.
Yes. And this is where we encounter the very first principle of the Dokkodo, and, arguably the most challenging one for most people.
Which is?
Accept everything just the way it is.
That is incredibly difficult. My immediate gut reaction to that, and I think a lot of listeners will feel this too, is, but what if the way it is absolutely sucks?
Right.
If I'm in a really bad situation, say I'm deep in debt, or I'm in a toxic relationship, or I just lost my job, shouldn't I be trying to change it? Is Musashi telling us to just be doormats and accept misery?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And that's a really common misunderstanding of acceptance in, a lot of Eastern philosophy. The source is very careful to clarify that acceptance isn't passivity. It's not the same as resignation.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's about removing the friction of denial. Think about it. Most of our frustration and anger comes from the gap between what is happening and what we want to be happening.
It's the argument with reality.
Exactly. You're arguing with reality. You cannot fight a battle effectively if you are standing there screaming at the rain for being wet. It's pointless. You have to accept the rain, fully acknowledge it, and then you can decide how to move through it.
So if you're in debt.
If you're in debt, accepting it means looking at the cold, hard number on the page and saying, okay, this is the reality, rather than spiraling into shame or wishing it wasn't true. Denial is a massive drain on your energy. Acceptance seals that leak.
So acceptance is actually the first step of strategy. You can't navigate a map if you refuse to admit where you're starting from.
You've nailed it. That's precisely the warrior's mindset, and the source brings up the Japanese concept of mujo here.
Right, impermanence. I remember this part in the notes. It used the image of cherry blossoms.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Life is like cherry blossoms. Breathtaking but brief. If you fight against the fact that the blossoms are going to fall, you will live in constant anxiety. You'll just be staring at the tree, terrified of the wind.
But if you accept it,
If you accept that they are temporary, you can fully appreciate them while they are here, and you can let them go with grace when they leave. The source says, change stops being an enemy and becomes a teacher.
there's a line in the text related to this that really stood out to me. It's about loss. It says, loss still hurts, but it no longer breaks you. That seems to be the ultimate goal here. It's not about becoming a robot who feels nothing.
No, it's about structural integrity.
Structural integrity. I like that.
And that integrity comes from another level of this, which is detachment from outcomes. This is a crucial strategic point Musashi makes over and over. The warrior commits fully to the effort, the strike of the sword, the launch of the business, the difficult conversation, but releases what he calls the heavy chains of expectation regarding the result.
Why are they chains? Why that word?
Because control over results is, for the most part, an illusion. You can prepare for the presentation perfectly, but the client might just be in a terrible mood that day. You can be the perfect partner, but they might still leave you. If your entire self-worth is tied to the arrow hitting the bullseye,
Your hand is going to shake.
your hand will shake, and that shaking is anxiety. If you are detached from the outcome, you can strike with what the source calls pure concentration. You become totally absorbed in the process, not the prize.
This all links to another principle that I think really rubs modern culture the wrong way. In all things, have no preferences. And along with that, be detached from desire your whole life long.
Yeah, those are tough ones.
They are. I mean, playing devil's advocate here. No preferences, no desires. Does that mean I can't prefer pizza over kale? Or desire a promotion? Or desire a warm bed on a cold night? It sounds like a recipe for a joyless life.
It's a question of degree and, more importantly, attachment. The analysis and the sources suggest this doesn't mean having no goals or enjoyments. Musashi obviously had goals. He wanted to survive his duels. He wanted to perfect his art. He wanted to teach.
Right?
It's about avoiding the cycle of craving. It's about being fundamentally adaptable.
Can you give me a practical example?
Sure. Let's take your pizza and kale example.
Mm-hmm.
If you prefer pizza, that's totally fine. But if you find yourself in a situation where the only thing available is kale, and you become miserable, angry, and refuse to eat because it's not pizza, now you are a slave to your preference.
And your preference is controlling you.
Exactly. But if you have no preferences in that deeper sense, you can absolutely enjoy the pizza if it's there, but you can also find the fuel you need in the kale and keep moving if that's what reality is offering you in that moment.
So it's about not being a slave to your own wants. It reminds me of those people who travel to a new country and then get really upset because the coffee isn't exactly like it is back home.
Yes, that's a perfect example.
They let a simple preference completely ruin their experience of a new culture.
Precisely. It prevents the paralysis of addiction to comfort or to very specific outcomes. It gives you ultimate flexibility. You start to find joy in the unexpected rather than needing to check off a rigid list for happiness. I will only be happy if I get this specific job in this city for this salary. That is a recipe for suffering.
Whereas the warrior says,
The warrior says, I will do my absolute best to get that job, but if I don't, I will find another path, and I will walk it with just as much commitment.
talking about kale and pizza and what's fuel versus what's desire actually brings us perfectly into our third section, relentless self-discipline. Because if there is one thing Musashi was absolutely intense about, it was discipline. The source describes it as the unseen sword.
I love that metaphor so much. The unseen sword is the weapon you carry with you before the battle even starts. It's all the preparation. It's the late nights and the early mornings when no one is watching.
And it defines discipline in a way that I think is really, really helpful for anyone who struggles with procrastination. It says discipline is not occasional motivation. It is a lifelong contract with your higher self.
And that is such a profound shift in perspective.
Yep.
Most of us, we treat discipline as this transaction based on our mood.
Totally. I feel motivated today, so I'll go to the gym.
I don't feel like it, so I won't. We wait for the feeling to strike us. Musashi views it as a core part of your identity. The source gives these really specific, gritty examples. Waking up when comfort is begging you to sleep. Choosing necessity over ease every single time.
So it's the difference between doing something because you feel like it and doing something because that is who you are.
Yes. The text says, actions carve a new identity. Someone who does not negotiate with excuses.
Total.
Imagine for a second how dangerous, in a good way, you would be if you were the kind of person who simply did not negotiate with your own laziness. You recognize that voice in your head that says, just hit the snooze button, and you step right over it like it's a crack in the sidewalk. It has no power.
The Dokkodo gets very, very specific here, especially regarding pleasure. There's a principle. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. And even more pointedly, do not pursue the taste of good food.
And this is where Musashi loses a lot of the foodies in the audience.
I was about to say, don't pursue the taste of good food. That sounds so ascetic, so joyless.
It does on the surface, but we have to look at the why. The source explains that while pleasure itself is natural and fine, seeking it as a primary goal creates a vicious cycle of craving. If you live for the taste of good food, you are controlled by your appetite. For the warrior, food is fuel. It is a means to an end, not the end itself.
So it's about who is in charge. Is your belly in charge or is your mind in charge?
That's it exactly. If you need a Michelin star meal to be satisfied, you are fragile. Your happiness depends on external factors you can't control. But if you can be just as satisfied with a simple bowl of brown rice, you are robust. You are free.
And this extends to emotions too, right? He writes, do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling.
Partial feeling. Such an interesting phrase.
Yeah, what does the expert analysis say that actually means?
A partial feeling is an impulsive, temporary emotion. It's basically acting on a whim. It's buying that expensive car because you feel that jolt of excitement in the moment. That's the partial feeling, without considering the 5 years of payments that will follow.
Or screaming at your partner because you feel angry in the moment.
Exactly. Without considering the 10 years of history and love you have together. Those feelings are partial because they don't reflect the whole truth or the long-term reality.
They're like flash floods. They rise up fast, cause a lot of damage, and then they're gone.
A perfect analogy, yes. And Musashi's command is, do not depend on them. Do not let them steer the ship. You have to wait for the floodwaters to recede so you can see the landscape clearly again.
And what about the more toxic emotions? He has principles like never be jealous and do not hold on to anger or resentment.
Resentment is described in the text as drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It erodes your self-worth. It's a corrosive acid. If I am resentful of you, I am letting you live rent-free in my head. I am giving you my precious energy. Musashi demands that we reclaim that energy for our own path. And the source emphasizes a specific technique to deal with all of this called inner silence.
Which is not just, being in a quiet room.
No, not at all. Inner silence is the absence of inner chaos. It's about creating a gap, a little space between the stimulus, someone insulting you, a traffic jam, a failure, and your response.
In that space.
That space is where the warrior lives. That space is where your power lies.
Yeah.
Because in that space, you get to choose not to be jealous. You get to choose not to be resentful. You get to choose a calm, strategic action instead of a hot, foolish reaction.
That space really is everything, isn't it? It's the difference between a reflex and a choice.
It's the difference between being a puppet and being the master.
Okay, so we've got solitude, acceptance, and discipline as the foundation. Now we move to how this warrior actually presents themselves to the world. Section 4. Ego, humility, and simplicity. And there is a principle here that I think should be tattooed on everyone's forehead in the Instagram age.
I know which one you're going to say.
Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world.
It's the perfect antidote to the modern ego, isn't it?
Yeah.
We are conditioned from birth to think deeply of ourselves, our personal brand, our feelings, our status, our narrative, and to think very lightly of the world. We treat the world as a backdrop for our personal movie. Musashi just flips it completely on its head.
Okay, but what's the benefit of that flip? Why should I think lightly of myself? Doesn't that lead to low self-esteem?
It leads to freedom. Think about it. When you're constantly focused on your own importance, you are heavy. You are so easily offended. You're burdened by the constant need to maintain your image.
Right.
If someone forgets your name at a party, it's a crisis. If you get a bad comment online, it ruins your whole week. When you think lightly of yourself, you become agile. You don't take things personally anymore. And when you think deeply of the world, you gain connection, you gain empathy, you gain insight. You start to see reality clearly because your own ego isn't blocking the view.
It's almost like if I realize I'm not the center of the universe, the pressure is off. I can just exist and do my work without all that baggage.
That's it exactly. And this flows directly into the idea of simplicity. The source uses the visual of a master swordsman, discarding any excess movement.
Yeah, I can picture that perfectly. The novice is jumping around, all these flashy moves, trying to look cool.
Wasting a ton of energy.
Yeah.
The master just stands perfectly still and then one perfect cut. That's it. Simplification is not deprivation. It is refinement. That is a key quote from the text.
Simplification is refinement.
Yes, and applied to your life, this means stripping away the noise, the clutter, the superficial achievements that don't actually matter.
And possessions, too. Musashi was a nomad, a wanderer. He wrote, be indifferent to where you live, and also, do not be attached to your position.
This directly challenges our entire modern definition of success. We define success by the zip code we live in, the square footage of our house, the title on our business card.
Right.
Musashi argues that those external markers do not define your worth. If you can find peace sleeping in a cave or in a palace, you are ultimately free. But if you need the palace to feel okay,
You are a prisoner of the palace.
you're a prisoner of the palace, you're a prisoner of the mortgage, you're a prisoner of the constant fear of losing it all.
That is a terrifyingly high bar to clear, but I absolutely see the logic. If you need nothing, you can't be threatened with loss.
Exactly. You become indifferent, not in the sense of not caring about anything, but in the sense of being self-contained. You are at home wherever you stand.
So you've built this fortress of a mind. Now you actually have to use it. You can't just sit in the cave meditating forever. Which brings us to section 5, strategy and action, the warrior in motion. The source talks a lot about mastering the moment.
This is the antidote to living on autopilot. I mean, how often do we drive somewhere and then we arrive and we don't even remember the trip?
All the time.
Or we sit through a whole meeting and just completely zone out.
Hmm.
The warrior treats each breath as if it were a battlefield.
Okay, that sounds exhausting. Like, do I really need to be hypervigilant while I'm brushing my teeth?
It sounds intense, but it's actually energizing. It's about
Well.
presence, total presence. The source says the only reality you can actually control is the immediate challenge in front of you. If you're fighting a duel, you cannot be thinking about what you're having for dinner, and you cannot be thinking about the mistake you made 5 seconds ago.
If you do, you die.
You die. Your mind must be, and this is a quote, a blade of pure concentration.
And this leads to situational awareness, the idea of reading the room.
Yes. It's moving through the world with your eyes and your intuition fully awake. It's reading the subtle energy of a room, the tension in someone's voice. And the source makes a great point here. It's not paranoia, it's preparation.
I like that distinction.
It's seeing the threat or the opportunity before anyone else does, because you aren't staring down at your phone. You're looking up at reality.
And when you see that reality, how do you react? The source uses the famous water analogy here.
Adaptability like water. Water does not argue with the rock in its path. It just flows around it. Or, if there is enough of it over enough time, it crushes the rock. But it never, ever stops moving.
So the practical application here is don't demand that circumstances be fair.
Correct. Be flexible in your strategy, but absolutely fixed in your principles. The text says, rise like steam, freeze like ice, flow like a river, depending on what the moment requires.
So different situations call for different approaches.
Exactly. Sometimes you need to be gentle and yielding, like steam maybe when you're handling a sensitive friend. Other times you need to be hard and unmoving, like ice-like when you're setting a firm boundary. If you're rigid, if you only have one mode of operating, like being a hammer, you break when you encounter something that isn't a nail. But if you're water, you cannot be broken. You just change form.
And finally, under strategy, there's a big one, decisiveness. Hesitation gives fear power.
This is such actionable advice for everyone listening. When you know what needs to be done, do it immediately. The gap between knowing and doing, that is the fertile ground where fear and procrastination grow.
I feel that. If you need to make a difficult phone call, the longer you stare at the phone.
The heavier it gets,
Yeah.
until it feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The warrior steps forward the very moment that clarity emerges. Do not waste precious time and energy second-guessing.
Okay, moving on to section 6. And this is probably the area where Musashi feels the most alien to us today. It's how he approaches handling relationships and mortality.
This is definitely where the modern and the 17th century samurai mindsets can clash.
Yeah, the Dokkodo says, flat out, do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. And even more starkly, never let yourself be saddened by a separation.
And this is the most controversial part for modern listeners, by far.
Hmm.
We prize love and romantic connection above almost everything else. We write songs about it, we make movies about it, we build our entire lives around it.
Right. On the surface, it sounds like he's saying, don't love anyone, just be a stone.
That is the surface reading, absolutely. But the nuance, according to our expert analysis, is all in the words guidance and dependency. He isn't saying don't love, he's saying don't be guided by the feeling.
What's the difference?
Don't let the raw emotion override your judgment or your path. Don't abandon your principles just because you're infatuated. Don't lose yourself completely in the other person.
So it's about not losing your sovereignty in the relationship. It's a powerful argument against becoming codependent.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's about maintaining your own center. And regarding separation, whether that's a breakup or distance or death, the principle is never let yourself be saddened. Again, it doesn't mean you don't feel grief. Grief is a natural human response.
Okay.
It means sorrow should not become a burden that stops you from walking your path. Separation is a natural part of an impermanent world. Everything ends. If you completely collapse because a relationship ends, it means you were depending on it for your structural stability. Musashi wants you to be structurally sound, all on your own.
It all comes back to that core self-reliance. If I am whole on my own, then a relationship is a wonderful bonus, not a structural requirement.
Exactly. And this applies to other relationships, too. What about jealousy in comparison?
Right, he says. Resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others.
Complaining is identified in the text as a massive, pointless waste of energy. It fixes nothing. It just drains your power. And jealousy. Jealousy ignores the fundamental fact that everyone has a unique path. Why would you be jealous of someone else's journey when you are supposed to be focused on walking your own? To the warrior mind, it's completely illogical.
And then the big one, the one we all try to ignore every day, death. He writes, do not be preoccupied with living a long life, and do not regret what you have done.
This is the ultimate freedom, isn't it? The fear of death drives so much of our daily anxiety. We play it safe because we want to extend the timeline. We hoard money we'll never spend. We avoid taking risks. We live these small, timid lives just to make them a little bit longer.
And Musashi says,
stop worrying about the length of a life and start worrying about the width of it, the depth of it.
And the do not regret part. That's so hard. I mean, everyone has regrets. I shouldn't have said that. I should have taken that job.
But regret is looking backward. It's arguing with the past, which is just as futile as arguing with the rain. The logic here is that the full acceptance of your own mortality brings an incredible peace. If you truly accept that you could die tomorrow, you do what matters today. You don't put off the important work. You don't. And you don't waste time regretting yesterday's mistakes. You just learn from them. The source mentions the concept of Kaizen here.
Continuous improvement.
Yes, exactly. Live as if life is a never-ending dojo. You compare yourself only to who you were yesterday, not to other people, and not to some impossible ideal you've invented. You just keep sharpening your own blade. A mistake isn't a sin, it's just data. Use the data, improve your next strike, and move on.
Which brings us perfectly to the final core concept, the title of our deep dive source material, Hagan no Ishi.
Hagan no Ishi, the spirit of forged will, or simply iron will.
Talk to me about the blacksmith metaphor. It seems central to everything.
It is the central image of the text. Imagine a blacksmith at the forge, hammering a piece of molten metal. That metal is your spirit. And the hammer blows. Those are the trials of life.
The pain, the doubt, the failures.
The heartbreak, the traffic jams, the insults, the losses, all of it.
And most of us, we want to avoid the hammer. We want a soft life. We want to be wrapped in bubble wrap from birth to death.
Exactly. We run from the hammer. We numb ourselves with distraction and comfort. But the solitary warrior understands that the hammer is what makes the steel strong. Without the heat of the forge and the impact of the hammer, the iron just remains soft. It remains brittle.
So you don't break under the pressure.
You harden. You absorb the blow, and you use its energy as fuel to become denser, sharper, and more resilient.
So the bad days, the days when we're getting hammered, are actually the most valuable days for our growth.
If you have the mindset of the forge, yes, they are the days you are being made.
The source also connects this will to the physical body. It's not just a mental exercise.
No, it's a total mind-body balance. The text says, a sharp mind cannot thrive in a neglected body. Your body is your first weapon and first temple. You cannot have Hagan no Ishi, an iron will, if you are physically falling apart due to neglect. It's not about looking like a fitness model. It's about function. It's about being ready.
And it never ends.
It never ends. Studying without ceasing. The warrior never arrives at a destination called perfection. Mastery is a continuous process, not a final destination. You are always a student. You are always learning.
So bringing all of this together, it's a lot. We've walked through the silent dojo, we've stripped away the ego, we've learned to flow like water, and we've stood in the heat of the forge to build an iron will. What is the single core message here for someone listening today?
The core message is mental freedom. That's what it all comes down to. The path of the solitary warrior is about systematically stripping away the need for validation, the fear of the future, and the slavery to your own impulses. It's about becoming so grounded in your own discipline, in your own values, that the world can spin completely out of control around you. Markets can crash, relationships can end, storms can come, and you remain standing, calm, ready.
The source has this great line where it invites the listener to join a lineage of warriors. That sounds so grand and intimidating, but how do we start? Like today, it's a Tuesday afternoon. What's the first step?
You start small, incredibly small. The source suggests a few things. Try inner silence, just for 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes where you don't consume anything, no phone, no TV, no podcast, you just exist.
Okay.
Or try acceptance. The next time something small goes wrong today, instead of getting angry or complaining, just say to yourself, I accept this, and move immediately to the solution. Or try discipline. Choose necessity over comfort just once today. Wake up 10 minutes earlier than you want to. Don't eat the junk food that's calling your name. Just prove to yourself, in one small way, that you are the one in charge.
So it's about building a body of evidence for yourself that you are who you say you want to be.
Precisely. Every single act of discipline is a vote for the person you want to become. You're casting a ballot for your future self.
I want to leave you with one final thought from the source material that really, really stuck with me. It says that on this path, ordinary people are burned away and only forged steel remains. So my question to you is this. If you stripped away all of your complaints, your need for approval, your fear of the future, and all your regrets about the past, who would be left standing in that silence?
Become the architect of your own destiny.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. Walk your path.
See you in the dojo.